We are going live now with a very special guest. You're not going to want to miss this one. Stay tuned. I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution. All right, we're back for a very special interview. We do this every year. The Olympia is coming up in less than a week now, and we want to know what the experts think. This guy is an expert of experts. He's a four-time Mr. Olympia, three-time Arnold Classic champ, very good friend to the show. He is an industry icon, Hall of Famer, and the list goes on and on. Let me bring him back here right now. Jay Cutler, thank you for joining us on this show and for the Olympia special.
Appreciate it, Dave, man. I always look forward to this time of year. You know, we have a lot of ground to cover here. So yeah. I know this year is a lot of hype around the show. I've been following all your hype up as we lead into this and, you know, going back and forth on who's going to be the front runners. But should be an exciting show this year.
Yeah, I mean, just to cut to the chase, I mean, you and Ronnie battled it out for years, just you and him, and you never gave up. You eventually, you know, beat him on stage. Are we going to see a similar battle between Hadi and Derek in your mind? Is that going to be like an ongoing battle for the next couple of years? Is this the battle we're going to see this year? Or do you feel that there's other people that have a legitimate chance of winning the Olympia this year?
You know what? This show it's a little tricky, man, because I think it's a little wide open. I mean, I think that, yes, we're going to talk about those two because that's how it's been, you know, and obviously, you know, Hadi had some great success at the Arnold Classic recently. But I think that there's a couple guys brewing with size and structure that outweighs, you know, the condition factor that the top two guys the last couple of years have brought. And, you know, listen, it just takes a little while for people to come into their own. And I think that we're going to start seeing that shift. I mean, you saw it all the way through, whether it was Ronnie or my era or Kai and Phil's era, where new people come up, right? I mean, it's always that chance.
When you saw the Arnold Classic this past year and we saw what Hadi brought to the stage conditioning-wise, is he in a class by himself? Is there anyone else in the Olympia lineup who can bring that level of conditioning? And in your mind, is that level of conditioning so far above everyone else's that it might make him a shoo-in for the title?
I think he did show probably one of the better physiques. Listen, he was great for a lot of years, Dave. You know that. Yeah. I mean, a lot of Olympias, I felt like he could have really been in a better position, but circumstance always kept him from really nailing it exactly the way he needed to. And I think, you know, him coming over here and training, he's been here for quite a while. He's got that formula figured out. But once again, a big man with enough condition, with enough push to the muscle, that condition can sometimes outweigh someone who's splintery in condition because they are limited in structure. And Hadi is not the biggest structure guy. And I mean, if we go back in time, I mean, look at some of the former Mr. Olympias. I mean, it was always about, you know, the structure, the size, the roundness, and you know, a lot of it, I have to say, genetics.
Yeah. You know, you bring up a good point, and I was going to bring it up myself. I'm glad you brought it up. I feel almost, and I don't know if it's because I was one of the bigger guys when I competed, but I think even just as a fan of the sport, I'm used to rooting for a Mr. Olympia like you or Ronnie or Dorian or Haney, the big guys, you know, that 5'11", 6 foot range, you know, that brought oodles of, you know, size and mass, but it displayed it in an aesthetic way. And it always seemed like that was the Mr. Olympia look. It was, and then you would get like every once in a while, like a guy like Dexter, no shot at him, but you know, he wasn't one of the bigger guys. He was a guy that happened to be the best on that day. And those guys never seemed to have the traction to be able to win 3-4 in a row, like a guy like, you know, Chris Dickerson or, you know, Samir back in the day. It seemed like the big guys were the guys that had the reins, you know. is that really what we're craving as fans in the sport, looking for the next big thing?
We're looking for change, Dave. We're always looking for change. We're looking for the could have been, just waiting for. I mean, it's like the Rami effect. Like we saw him come alive in 13, and it's how many years before he actually won it. We just said, if this guy nails it, I mean, we can say that about Sampson. We can say that about Andrew Jack. I think Hunter's making a track forward. We got Nick Walker, who's a question mark. There's a lot of guys. I mean, Brandon Curry, who's the former champ. It's very hard to predict. And if anyone predicts, I know you're having this contest for predictions on your channel. I think it's really cool. But man, the person that guesses that, I think, like you guys said, you need to have him as like a yearly guest to do the prediction.
It's like he's more of a prophet than he is a predictor, right?
I think it's going to be a lot of luck, Dave, because this is the thing. Okay, this is the thing. And I want to talk a little bit about this because structure is everything, meaning your life in order, meaning you have to have no distractions. I always talked about the boxy lifestyle with there can be zero. You have to have tunnel vision. You have to train, eat, and sleep without interruptions. Now, if you really look at who is doing that the best of their ability and has done that is probably Lunsford because he had the child, he's at home, he's training at home. I mean, you got the hotties and you got Andrew Jackson. I mean, Sampson's been competing. Hunter Labrada's been competing. Nick Walker had to compete and, he's, made a migration to Florida. There's a lot of obstacles for those guys where Derek has been honed in training, day in, day out. He's got his system. He's not uprooted himself and had to go places. And that speaks volume when it comes to success on a bodybuilding stage. Phil Heath will tell you that. Ronnie Coleman will tell you that. Dorian Yates, if anyone, will tell you that. People are forgetting that. And that's what makes them. It's the same thing with Classic. I mean, we can talk about Bumstead, which we may, but look at where he's been. And look at Ramon's been training in Vegas. He had to pop over here. Urs is over here. Now he just flew over. There's a lot of pieces to this puzzle to make yourself in the position to win at the best of your ability. And I feel like Lunsford has all those tools and the best shot of repeating this title.
Now, Hani Rambod, obviously, toward the end of your career, you work with him, you're friends with him. I noticed Hadi had Derek come over to Texas, which is where Hani and Hadi were also training. What was the purpose of that at a couple of weeks out from the Olympia? Because like you said, you don't really want to uproot people like that close to the Olympia. Did he feel that he felt maybe Derek needed a little kick in the ass? What was that movement about?
No, that's just, listen, there's a great value of friendship. Hani's circle is, it's a tight circle. Phil Heath and I did the same thing. We stayed at the same hotel. I mean, even living in Vegas, we stayed at the Trump when we were prepping, down towards the end. We were around each other, posing around each other, obviously building that friendship. And I think Hani and Derek are closer in friendship than probably the community realizes. But Hani's Hani's got the tools. Like, that's the one thing I can tell you with the confidence of those two. They have probably one of the most precise, if not the most precise coach. And I say that respectively. Chris, obviously I worked with him and we're super friends. I mean, we're family. But Hani has kind of a chip on his shoulder where he's really if you watch him even pose behind these guys, he's kind of like hitting the poses with them like very intensely, right? So I think that his heart and soul is into it. And I think he just, he went out and saw Derek and then he's like, hey, let's get you in the mix a little bit let's see what you look like as you train. Let's see, how you pose after. Let's compare so we can see where it condition. I mean, they're facing off against each other to realize, okay, you need to be sharper or we need to adjust or this or that. And I think they're free to say, hey, you know what? The best man wins. I'm supportive of either side. And that's the balance between, I mean, can you imagine being in the position of Hani where, once again, he has the top two guys leading into the contest. Right. And it's like, who is your heart and soul with, and you have to equally split that. And no matter what anyone says, I truly believe Hani has no real value in either which one that wins. I think he's just like, hey, we're just going to lay it on the line and see which one stands on stage. I mean, obviously, you know, Derek won that battle last year. Was it close? Yeah, very.
Yeah, but I just think it's interesting that he had Derek come out there so close to the Olympia. To me, that just says that he wanted to inspire Derek. Excuse me. He wanted to get Derek, you know, a little more motivated. Is that a possibility? Is that a strategy that Hadi uses with his clients?
No, I think he just wanted to put them together, train, and kind of get them around each other and make them realize they're both champions, right? They're both Olympia champs. I think it's a content piece. I think it's, hey, you know what? You guys have done in 1 and 2 again. Prepare yourselves for it. Probably give them a little pep talk. And I'm sure no matter what, if I went and trained with Coleman weeks out, I mean, I would definitely, I mean, I got more motivated doing the photo shoots when we were 3 weeks out or whatever. You know, I'd ask how Ronnie's looking. Social media is crazy because now we can pretty much watch our opponents day to day, right? So that's the cool thing about it. But listen, Derek is, I spoke to Derek. I checked on him last week after the whole hurricane stuff, and he's just locked in, man. And forget about it. Hadi he's on the next level. I mean, there's no one that's training, I believe, similar to, I mean, listen, I'm sure everyone's training hard, but these guys have the formula figured out.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Let me ask you a question about Nick Walker, because he's like a very, you know, a lot of people, he's such a fan favorite and such a polarizing figure. He missed the Olympia last year with the hamstring tear. Obviously, he's got something to prove. He came back to New York. A lot of people, myself included, thought that, you know, Martin kind of edged him in New York. I don't know what your feelings are. You can tell us about that. What does Nick have to focus on going into this Olympia? And do you expect to see a better Nick Walker, or do you expect to see maybe a Nick Walker that's not as good as we're expecting? Are we over expecting? That's really my question.
Listen, Nick always shows at the Olympia, so I know he has something to prove, and sometimes that guy that's doubted sometimes can be a very dangerous factor. The only thing that concerns me about Walker is the transition of, you know, Vegas, Florida, sponsorship, you know, getting back in the groove. That's the only thing that concerns me about Nick. But listen, he missed the opportunity last year. Unfortunately, he realistically, I mean, in a lot of people's opinion, had a great shot to battle that top 3 spot last year. He's a conditioned guy. He looked tremendous at all these Olympias. Now, did Martin beat him in New York? I wasn't there, Dave. Once again, we're not talking about at this Olympia. I don't know if anyone's talking about the Nick Martin Fitzwater battle, like these guys are going to fight for that 3rd spot, 2nd spot, 1st spot, whatever it is. I know people are counting Nick out. I'm a huge Nick Walker fan. I've known him since he was a kid. He's very driven, very focused. I mean, he really doesn't miss with what he's in his preparation. But once again, I think that there's a little turmoil in transitioning from one place to the next. And he's kind of been, you know, he went back to Jersey, he came to Vegas, and then now he's back in Florida. That's my only concern, because he hasn't found and locked himself in a position like maybe like Derek has, or like a Hadi or whatever else. And that's the only thing that could be the deciding factor to where he ends up at this contest.
I'm surprised that he doesn't train with Derek, right? Don't they live pretty close to each other? No,
he's down a little further now. He's down where Bumstead is. You know, he's not.
Oh, okay.
Tampa, I mean, Tampa's becoming the new hotbed. I know a lot of the young kids, the young LA kids and the Trend boys, they're all down there now. And I mean, Derek's got a gym now. He's got a facility.
Right.
Derek's locked in. I mean, his age too, Dave. It's age.
I know. Crazy, right?
Derek's 30. And that's the one advantage he has over all these guys. Remember, he's still putting on fresh muscle. And if you go back and you look at how Hadi improved for the Arnold, I don't know if he put on a tremendous amount of size. It was more just bringing that finer detail in the back, where Derek still has the ability to be rounder. And that's where he's going to, we're not going to see the same Derek Lunsford as last year. I mean, we've seen the back pictures. He loves to show in the back, right? Question is, Dave, I'm going to ask you because you saw Dorian Yates in his prime, and we know Dorian's back was the craziest thing we've ever seen. I remember thinking, how is that human? I mean, is it the best back of all time? That's the big question.
Yeah. I think, Coleman had a great back, but I think that Dorian's was because the separation and graininess. I mean, look at the front lat spread. It was unbelievable. I mean,
I just saw a poll. It's like Lee Haney, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath, and Dorian Yates or whatever. And it was like, I can't stand with these guys. People are putting Dorian at the end, Dave. Can you imagine? If they don't remember. They don't, because social media is such a crazy thing. Dorian would wipe the floor with every single one of us, probably including Ronnie Coleman.
It's funny. Ronnie had an insane back, but for some reason he didn't know how to hit a front lat spread. I don't know what his problem was, but he couldn't do it.
Yeah, side tricep, abs.
It was like he was hitting a most muscular pose when he would hit the front lat spread.
Dorian Yates. I mean, I hope some of our viewers or listeners, Dorian Yates, he was just something else in his prime.
You never were on stage with Dorian, were you?
No, but when I guessed at 95, I got a guest posing in Hawaii. I got paid $500 to fly to Dean Tamashiyoshi show. Do you remember Dean Tamashiyoshi? Did you ever fly out there with him?
No, I never did his show, but I know who he was. Yeah.
So he brought me out to guest pose, and I got the opportunity to pose with Yates and with Mike Matarazzo, and I'll never forget the first time I saw Yates backstage as we were about to guest pose. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. I mean, I always talk about Lee Priest, but I mean, come on, Dave, look at this. I mean,
that last spread is ridiculous. Yeah. Jay, I have a funny Dorian story. So I guest posed with, you remember Jimmy Dakotas was your partner.
Of course, yeah.
So Jimmy used to bring me out there to guest pose at that show every year in the New Englands. And this was 96. And I was there with Dorian guest posing, and Dorian was like off season, and I was like getting ready for something. And it's funny because I was in I used to be very, very lean at like 290 stuff like that. So and the New England fans are like just fucking crazy for like.
I was there, Dave. I was there. If you were there in '96, I was there for sure.
So your local newspaper ran like some kind of they did a story on it because Dakotas knew someone at the newspaper, and the whole story was about me. And there was like a little inset of Dorian that like incidentally, by the way, Dorian Yates, Mr. Olympia guest posed too. And it was a huge picture of me hitting like, I don't know what I was hitting, like a front double by or something like that. And I that was like the highlight of my life that they actually highlighted me over Dorian Yates guest posing. And it was only because the New England fans didn't give a shit. They wanted to know who looked the best on that day. That was what they were there for,
Yeah.
But Dorian was unbelievable, though. Incredible. Seriously. People don't know. All right. I want to ask you about Andrew Jack, because Andrew Jack is the new guy on the block who seems to. I know Chris told me last year after the Olympia, he kind of read Andrew the Riot Act and said, listen, you want to do this 100%? You got the ability to win the Olympia. And he gave him the speech, that he needed to hear. And it seemed like Andrew put his head to the grindstone and he gained 20 pounds of muscle, from the Texas Pro last year to this year. He's obviously a different bodybuilder. Is this guy like another Coleman, in the making, or can we see this guy come into the Olympia and shock people and win?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, he has the ability to be the next. And man, he's something else. Once again, I mean, he's training. He had to migrate over to, which is a little tough sometimes. Yeah. But he has all the tools, man. I mean, I think he's put on enough mass where there's questionable from the side, right? That was where he was kind of losing to these, till you stand them next to each other, it's really hard to tell. But I think with Hadi and Derek, I mean, you throw Andrew in the middle of that at 6'2", it can be a dangerous sight for those guys. If this guy's in just enough shape, I always say this, I'm going to say this about Samson too. Samson needed to be 10% better than he has been to be able to stand with the top guys. And he has the last couple of years at third. But Andrew, I mean, the front doubles improved. I mean, let's talk about shot for shot. The first shots, front double, who wins? Front lat spread, who wins?
Yeah, I don't think anyone beats Andrew from the front.
Abs and thighs, who wins? Yes, I mean, you can turn them around the back. Those guys have crazy lat spreads and back doubles. Side poses. Andrew's got he's got the midsection. The midsection goes a long way. Mr. Olympia currently right now doesn't have a crazy midsection. Yes, no. Hottie. And that's where Hottie gains a lot of traction because once again, you're looking at that center core. But Andrew, I mean, he has all the tools. It really comes down to him being, I hate to even put percentage, but him being better than Texas, which he needs to be. He needs to be at all-time best to really leapfrog up from 6th to, is he 5th last year or 6th?
5th.
Okay, to knocking at the door of winning this. Yes, he can win it, 100%. He's in the position right now with the hype and everything else to run with this title and leave these guys, standing wondering what happened.
Does the sport of bodybuilding, is that something that they want? I mean, it seems to me that would be exciting, like to see an Andrew Jack deliver, a knockout blow, right?
I'm going to go back to the beginning of this conversation. Andrew Jack walks in the room. Okay, you're in the athletes meeting. Andrew Jack walks into the room. Who's Mr. Olympia?
No, he is definitely is.
I mean, the shoulder width, the size. Yeah. When he walks in a restaurant, the way he looks, people say, "Who the hell is that guy?" And people,
right.
Olympia,
Yeah. No, you're right.
The world is waiting once again.
If you were a predicting man, do you think he's going to deliver the goods?
I mean, Chris says so. I don't. When Chris is like he's winning, I mean, it's not even like, well, this is good. It's just Chris says he's going to win. That's it. I mean, I'm curious to see, and we will know as soon as he walks out if he has the goods to take it.
Right. Let's talk Samson, because I think Samson's been the hot topic for the last couple of years. Obviously, still has yet to deliver the conditioning we want to see. You're a guy who busted his ass, did a lot of cardio, got in the best shape of his life. Is this a training thing that Samson has a problem with, or is this a physique thing? Is it? I don't believe that there's an individual on the planet that can't get ultra shredded if they suffer enough. What's your thinking on that?
Samson, the last couple of years, was just too big. So, meaning weight, he was too heavy. So I think Samson has found the formula. We saw him compete last week. Huge bonus. Huge bonus for what he did. I know there was a lot of question marks, but he's on the track right now. And I actually hit him up after this contest and I said, "You're well on the way. Just keep doing what you're doing." He just needs to, I mean, I think this here is better than what we've seen at the Olympia. And I think this alone will definitely take notice. But if he can be a little sharper, he's in the position to beat one of these other guys. Because once again, Dave, not everyone is going to be on the money. Not right. We can dream about the 6 or 7 guys that we talk about in this lineup that potentially can win this contest, but it's not going to be the dream case where they're all in the best shape ever.
No, it never is. There's never been a single contest where every guy has showed up in the best shape of life. I've never seen it in the history of bodybuilding.
Look at what happened. I mean, look at me. 08, 07. 2010 compared to 09. I mean, we do the same thing over and over, but with sometimes not the same result.
Look, the human body is so open to different variables. People get sick, they get food poisoning, they get over dehydrated. Because the climate is different. Sometimes Vegas is hot and dry. Sometimes it's not. So you have to take all these conditions into. Also, well, I'm going to ask you this also. What do you think about putting these guys on so late at night? I mean, do you see that as a problem for the bigger guys?
Listen, it was 7:00 when we did our prejudging, if you remember.
Yeah.
Friday night. listen, the whole thing is just, it's become a show. It's not focused as much of being a competition. And I'm not afraid to say that because there's just way too many classes combined with the whole draw, the whole competition. It's called the Mr. Olympia for a reason.
Yeah.
Go back in history. I know, hey, things transition forward. We need to create this, more entertainment or whatever else. But yes, it's ridiculous. I don't know what they're going to do about the time schedule, but these guys should be going on at 7:00. Let everyone else leave the auditorium that don't want to watch the other divisions and move forward. And that's the biggest fear is they want to push the guys to the end so the crowd stays. Who cares? I don't understand it. It's not for the athletes. If I could speak up, I would say it's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's wrong. I'm not in support of how they run the contest. And that's why I won't go on Friday night. I refuse to go. I won't be at the prejudging.
Oh, you won't? Really?
Absolutely not. I think it's disgusting the way they run it. I honestly do.
You know what? You're a person of influence, and you know what? I open my mouth and people say I'm trying to get clickbaiting people, but you know what? You're a dignitary of the sport. You're a former Mr. Olympia. I'm glad that you're saying this because a lot of guys won't go on the record and say this. It's not right for the athletes to have to go on that late. I don't understand why they can't. You know what? Fouad Abiad had a great idea. He said his show, what we do is no matter where it is at 8:00 at night, we stop the show and the men go on. And then I finish the show. So they should just do that at the Olympia. Say, all right, you know what? The cutoff's at 9:00 or 8:00, whatever it is. Wherever we are in the women's finals, we're going to stop it. We're going to do the men's prejudge, and then we'll finish the finals. I mean, isn't that logical?
If you tell them the exact time you're going to be on, it's a different story. But that hasn't been the case for the couple years. So if you say, guys, you're going on at 11:00, it just doesn't make sense for a worldwide audience either. It makes zero sense. If you're having a pay-per-view, you're trying to sell the pay-per-view, and you have people in the UK and all these other countries. And I understand, like, okay, the business is here in the States, but it makes zero sense to me. I don't know anyone that's prepared to go on stage at 10:30 or 11 at night. I don't know anyone that's, listen, they're stressed. They're asked to be at certain events like press conference at 12 on Wednesday, on Thursday. And, the Meet the Olympians is like at an average time. It's over by 8, 9 o'clock. It's just, it doesn't make sense how they're running. They have the prejudging for even classic physique and the women's stuff in the morning on Saturday. So what if people want to go and visually watch these contests? I mean, as athletes, as fans, it makes no sense to me. I don't understand it. I voiced this before, but I don't go to the Friday show. I refuse to go. I won't be there. And, I'll go to the Saturday night as a respect thing, but I don't agree with how it's run on Friday night.
Well, I'm glad you put that on the record, and hopefully the powers that be that set up the time schedule maybe will make an accommodation this year because it isn't right for the athletes. Other than that, I think the pomp and circumstance and the production is great. The way they're doing the show. Have you been to the resorts at all? I mean, I haven't been there yet. So is it a nice theater?
Yeah, I've been there. Listen, the hotel's great. It's a brand new hotel. I know the theater's a little limited on the seating. Obviously, they have the spillover for the with the club, and obviously they're doing
party. Yeah.
I think that's the biggest. I know being in Vegas and getting feedback, the tickets are pretty limited, which is very disappointing for a lot of people right now. And they've had to create this secondary venue for that reason. But Dave, as someone that is a fan, to be able to be at this contest and be present and get the aura of what it is, even if your seats are in the back, which I think every seating is pretty decent, especially the last couple of years, these shows. There's nothing like it. I mean, I'm sure you remember the first time you ever attended. My first was 95 Olympia in Atlanta, and I was in like the 8th row or 10th row, and I was right in the dead center. And I mean, I'll never forget that experience. So I think that can be a little challenging for the people that are coming to Vegas for the first time. I mean, obviously the VIP ticket holders, I mean, a lot of them are repetitive every year. there's a huge fan base for this. There's a lot of attraction to the people that are really dedicated to bodybuilding.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I mean, the venue is nice from what I see, but you're right. I mean, people want to be in the energy of the theater, even if they're sitting in the nosebleed seats, like at the old Mandalay Bay. They didn't care because they just wanted to see, the show and be there with all the fans. But you know what? I think the little overflow area that they're doing at the club there will be fun because people will be drinking and and having a good time there. So I want to get back to the lineup for a second because we've talked about the favorites, so to speak. Talk to me a little bit about some of the guys that are kind of nipping at that top 6. Guys like Martin Fitzwater, guys like Hunter Labrada, guys like Rafa Brandao.
Listen, Brandon Curry, respectfully, we haven't seen anything on him. Abdullah and him, he split up. Question mark. But man, Dave, when was the last time top 5 was without Brandon Curry?
I know. He was 4th last year and he was in the hospital the day before. So, I mean,
we are forgetting about him. If he comes in some sort of shape and condition that he has the last couple of years, 3 years, 4 years. I don't even, how many years has he been top 5? I don't even know because I'm not a historian like that. But
yeah,
I still view him as a guy that we're not counting in there. We're talking about Martin Fitzwaters, who, got a little hype, obviously, through winning a contest and questionably losing to Nick Walker. He's definitely a guy that we're going to be watching, but does he have enough mass to compete with a Hunter or a Team Williams or who else is there? There's so many guys. Rafael Brandao. We're not talking about him. I think a lot of people forgot him out of the predictions. I mean, he made a strong showing at that Arnold Classic before he left to put on more size. It's really going to come down. I mean, all these guys you're talking about right now, I mean, Martin needs to be as inside out like he was basically in New York, right? He needs to be, a little sharper in the quads, obviously, because I think he was a little full for that. But I mean, the condition was there from the back. I feel he has a great coach that sometimes it goes into the coach's hands with Stefan. I think that Hunter is a huge question mark. If Hunter can get his ab shot under control and he can kind of figure out that condition, he has all the tools to stand with the top guys. Right. I don't see any, I don't really see a flaw with Hunter. He has everything, and he's not one of the smaller guys. He's 5'9". I mean, he's got to be 260. Yeah. And then you have, it
seems like Hunter has a problem at the Olympia, though. We never have seen him really peak for the Olympia. He got 4th that one year, but a lot of, his conditioning was not great that year that he got the 4th.
Yeah, and I question he peaked a few weeks ago, and he wasn't peaked. Does that make sense? I don't think he was where he needed to be. And I mean, where he was in striking distance there, but Akeem Williams, I mean, Rafael Brandao, I don't even know if Rafael's traveling from Brazil. He's not here. I figured he'd be here. I know he had a child recently, so maybe that held him back in Brazil. But I mean, man, I know if I was gunning for the biggest title in the world, I would transplant myself at least close to that climate to be able to dial in, because he's lived here before. He's trained with Flex Lewis. I mean, I just sometimes I wish I could give certain advices in certain areas to be like, hey, this is the way to set yourself up for the success pattern. And that's kind of where we're at with those guys. I don't think any of those guys are going to make a run for the top 2. Andrew Jack or Samson would be the guys. I guess Nick Walker possibly too, but it's going to come down to a structure thing with no matter how Nick is going to do better if other people are off, if that makes sense. He's
the Branch Warren. The Branch Warren phenomenon, yeah.
He's limited, and that's not discrediting him as a bodybuilder. It's just there are. Listen, I was in that boat. There were guys that were better genetics than I were, but I just seemed to be in a better spot to position myself, as far as coming in what I needed to look like. And I was never the most shredded guy, and that's where I can say to Samson and Andrew, you guys can't chase the hottie Derek glute condition. And Dave, we can beat this glute thing till it's dead, but it's just, I can't stand it. But how can you not look at that when they're turning around from the back? And I mean, Derek is just, I mean, it's like the Flex Lewis look, you know, Flex Lewis, you can get over the glutes, you know, it's weird. His glutes could be shredded in certain areas, you know, his glutes are shredded probably 10 weeks out, but you know, you get conditioned in other areas. I never was like that. That's for sure.
Yeah, my middle back would come in last. My glutes would come in before my middle back. So everyone's got their own genetics, but I like you said, it's a very, very impressive look when you turn around and you have the glutes, you know, and Hadi has it, Derek has it, you know, Andrew can have it, and you know, Samson's the one who doesn't have it, and I think that's what's really pushing him out of that top two group.
Yeah, but Dave, turn him around to the front and standing there. Who's Mr. Olympia? I mean, does anyone have a better chest than Samson? I mean, it's crazy, some of his proportions, and the legs, the condition of the legs are better. I think still he's got the tools. It's just, I think really, if I can give any advice to Samson or Andrew Jack, it's going to come down to the posing. It's about opening up and hitting the poses and, you know, tightening, holding that midsection tight when you hit those quarter turns. And listen, man, they're watching the whole time, and they are going to work these guys to the point where it's a breaking point. And they need to be prepared. So if they're not posing every single day at this point over and over and over, it's going to be a challenge. And that's where these smaller stature guys are going to dominate the stage, because they can be better conditioned when it comes to those quarter turns and those poses. And don't forget the quarter turns, Dave. People tend to, pose for pose. Like, you know, you can get on here with your debate guys and say, who wins the front lat spread? Who wins this? But there's quarter turns, man. Like, it still matters standing there.
Yeah. You know, Cormier, I was talking with Cormier the other day, and he said they had reached out to Andrew Jack, you know, because he really feels that he can help him, you know, like you said, opening up and really with the transitions. And you know, he said, I guess no one responded to him when he did that. But you're right. The posing is really important, especially with the big guys. I
can tell you right now, Andrew's, he's crunching his side chest too much. There's poses that he can really, I mean, the side tricep, you know, he could really get that leg position better. He's turning too much, and it's thinning the leg out, you know, and that's not to criticize him, because he has it. It's just all about displaying it and dropping down, getting a little more bend to it, dropping that hamstring. He's up against killers, man. Those guys, those Hadi Derricks from the side, they're killers, man. Nick Walker, he's a killer. So, I mean, you got to prepare yourself. This is a battle, man, and there's a lot of goods on the table right now. Shit, man, if I was getting $400,000, or what is it? Is it 400 grand now, or?
I think are they gonna raise it? I don't even know.
I think it's 400, but it's double what I used to make. And I mean, not that I counted the prize money, because I honestly didn't care about the prize money. It was just an extra.
Arnold announced 500,000, so I'm assuming that the Olympia people will make an announcement that it's going to be greater than that. Right?
600. I mean, maybe it go to 6. You know, I mean, we got to get up closer to $1 million so we can get Phil Heath out of retirement. You know, I'm trying to razz up Phil. I want to try to raise some capital to get Phil Heath back up there.
Yeah. They should put up some money for the Masters Olympia. I guarantee you Phil would compete, right?
Yeah, I mean, who's going to battle for Masters if it's not 250 plus, Dave? I mean,
put 200. You're farming it out to like Japan. Say, hey, Japan, you got to put 200 grand up for first place, otherwise we're not giving it to you. And they'll do it. And you know what? You'll get Phil and you'll get Kai, you know, doing it. You know, maybe not Kai.
Kai will definitely say he's going to do it for sure.
Yeah. He'll get us all excited about it. Hey, you know, I want to ask you about Chris Bumstead, because obviously, you know, this guy's been pretty much invulnerable the last couple of years. I mean, he's got the greatest social media presence of all time. He's got a great physique. I mean, everyone loves this guy. I mean, he's making good business decisions. I'm going to ask you about business in a minute, but can anyone beat him this year? This seems like the year that it might be the closest that people have come, or has Bumstead kind of just, you know, put it away again?
No, he's in a league of his own. Combinations, he's got the it factor. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, he's got the poses, he's got the structure, he's got the, he's in shape. I mean, this may be the best we've seen him. I mean, I don't think he's had a lot of obstacles. We've seen a lot of updates from him, which we don't necessarily see all the time. Business wise, I mean, he's wildly successful, aligning himself probably to be the most successful bodybuilder of all time.
See that little guy? That sometimes can take away your focus.
Yeah, no, he's got a really good setup. He's got great partners down there. Obviously, Courtney's been down this road with her,
right,
with her career. He's prepared. He's got his own privacy to what his liking is. I mean, we know he's a bit introverted in a way where he just does his job. I don't think Chris has any thought process of how popular he really is. I think he's just him, and that's what makes him so special. And man, what a look, Dave. I mean,
it's crazy.
You're a 14, 15, 12, 18, 25, 35-year-old person. Who do you want to look like?
Right. No, 100%. That's why he's got that public appeal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it though. If social media was the way it was when you were competing, I think you would have been pretty close to as popular as he was.
I think we had a lot of popularity. I still think you travel the world and you say Jay Cutler, Ronnie Coleman versus Chris Bumstead, your demographics are going to understand who we are over such as him. But he's really tapped into that young generation, and that young generation is important for growth, especially for competitions, and that division has exploded. Now, the question mark I have, unfortunately, is there's 60. I want to say 60.
There's a lot. There's too many guys. Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. Okay, and Jake Wood has to fly everyone in and pay for all this. I mean, I don't know with that, but 60 qualified. It's 60, right? Or let's say it's 50. I don't even know what it is, Dave. And
there's a lot of guys. I can look it up for you while you're talking.
Waste of time counting. I mean, unless it's numbered. I mean, it's like bikini. How does someone not get? I mean, how do you bring 60 guys on a stage to line up and get a clear shot?
It seems a little weird, right?
That's the reason I'm not a judge. You understand?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you know these guys, Jay. Weinberg can line those guys up and pull out the best guys.
Listen, no, because I'm close to Steve, right? I mean, I promote 2 shows with him. I don't think there's anyone more expert than Weinberger, right? But he says it's easy. But for me, I just can't visualize 60 guys on a bodybuilding stage and picking, other than we know, okay, Chris Bumstead has been the champion and Ramon has been second, and Breon Ainsley, or I mean, there's so many.
Wesley Vissers. I want to ask you about Wesley Vissers winning the Army.
Vissers, I mean, the leg thing is just that could hold him back. I know he guest posed recently. Man, what a back double on him, right?
Crazy.
I mean, that's right. That could beat Bumstead, but it comes down to, I just talked about this, quarter turns and transitions, and the whole thing you need to be put together head to toe to the liking of what it is. I mean, his waist isn't as small as Chris's. I mean, but damn, what an upper body on this guy. Yeah, and he's improving. He's improving, and he's got a good look. I think he's another guy that these youngsters can look at and I mean, look at Ramon and this little thing kind of nodding, But listen, Ramon is the same. I mean, if you really analyze, if you visually, I don't know about you, but like I think Ramon has probably the most appealing physique that I would want to look like. But unfortunately, Chris has the wider shoulders, and just when they get on stage, Chris has, what Chris has that Ramon does not have? It's the polish. It's the confidence. It's the he just knows how to hit the poses, and unfortunately Ramon is following Chris's lead when it comes to this. Ramon needs to demand the stage. If you watch me in the beginning against Coleman from 01, when I got second, it was respect factor, and then sooner or later the confidence was there where I was slapping his leg like, okay, let's go. I mean, you kind of have to take the the reign of being, okay, I'm confident, I'm ready to take this title. And I think Ramon just needs to be serious and just go at it, just like Rami did when the year he won. Do you remember how confident he was and locked in the poses? And that makes a huge difference, because that allows the judges, you captivate the judges, you give it that aura out, and I think that's really important.
What I see from Bumstead, maybe you can tell me if I'm right or not, is that, like, you look at Ramon alone, and he's unbelievable. I mean, his waist is smaller than Chris's for sure, and his taper is great. But when he stands next to Chris, it's like, I don't know,
he gets lost. It's the Dorian Yates effect against everyone else, Dave.
I don't know what it is. It's weird. It's like, structure. The structure of Bumstead is so beautiful.
Shoulder width. It's X frame. Got the legs.
Right.
Chris trains hard. He doesn't, once the Ramon, the damage he did was, hey, I did a 6-week prep for the Arnold Classic and he lost to Wesley. I mean, I don't know. I would never set myself up for that,
I was going to say that it's really his fault for putting himself in that position. I mean, you can't blame Vissers for beating him,
Yeah.
Do you think Vissers moves up a spot in this Olympia?
What was he? I don't even know. Because
he was not in the top. He was not top 3 last year. So is he going to move up to the top 3?
He has the hype too, yeah. And I hate to say that because I'm very close to Urs. I know. Breon's been here already for a couple weeks with Cormier, and he says he's winning. I mean, I see Mike the Badass. He's here. He's training here.
You know what? Not that we need another division, so to speak, but I mean, for classic, you almost need a short and tall class because the physiques are so different. I mean, how do you stand next to a guy 6'2"? I mean, it's real.
You know how you stand next to him? You're Hadi Chupin or Derek Lunsford, bro. I mean,
but it's not bodybuilding. You can't you're stuck in your weight limitation for your height, so you're not going to be bigger than them.
But the standard started, think about this, and this is where it's confusing this is why bodybuilding, it's hard to sit there and figure out a bodybuilding contest. Mm-hmm. Danny Hester wins the first classic physique. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Breon takes over. Okay. I mean, we always thought Hester was, he's the ultimate body. And then you see Breon, he's put together so well. And then Bumstead second. And now Bumstead's like the standard. And then you got Wesley Vissers and you got, Logan Franklin, and you got certain guys that have height. Now it's like, it's a height game. You have to be a little taller. That's what it's become. So the standards changed a little bit because it started totally different. So we're still trying to figure
the guys weren't filled out enough at that point. You know what I mean? They needed to grow into that.
And listen, the weight caps adjusted. I mean, everything like it's still transitioning into what is this thing going to become? So I think there's still that newness of it. But as a spectator and as someone that's very experienced in being great on stage, I'm a little confused.
Well, think about it. How does a rough diesel who has to weigh 176 pounds or something like that compete against Bumstead who can weigh 250? You can't beat him. It's impossible.
I mean, rough diesel. Is there anyone that's, if you want to talk body, how put together is he? I mean,
I'd like to look like that.
And what's the reason he sat out this year, Dave? What is it? Because, hey, I'm not showing up for the Bumstead show again, or I mean,
I don't know. I like I said, I don't want to make any more divisions, but I almost think for classic, it's so popular now that they should have a short and a tall class. I really do. And did do it all at the end.
We might end up with a 4-day Olympia at this point then.
Well, look, I was out at the North American. It was a 5-day show. It was legitimately Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And you know what? It was very palatable because every day was not overdone. There was enough to keep you interested, but not too much that you wanted to throw up. You know, I think the Olympia would be great for over 4 days. I really do. It's actually starting Wednesday anyway with the amateur part.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the amateur, but that's a big draw for a lot of people. It's a big. Once again, the Olympia, I always have this, this concern, and this concern is my personal opinion, so I don't want anyone to take this disrespectfully. Yeah. But when I started competing, when I was drawn to the Olympia under the Joe Weider era, I was like, there was Mr. and Miss, and it was very prestigious. And slowly along the way, they started, you know, men's physique, Mr. Olympia. Now we have classic Mr. Olympia. We have bikini Miss Olympia, and wellness and figure and physique. And now we have amateurs. And I mean, it's confusing. It's who is Mr. Olympia? I mean, the major community thinks that's Chris Bumstead. I said, well, no, it's Bumsford. So I once again, you see behind me right here, right? You see behind me.
Sandows.
This is what it's about. Okay. This is Mr. Olympia. If you don't have one of these, it's hard to call yourself Mr. Olympia.
I agree. 100%. You got 4 of them. So who's going to be the next Jay Cutler?
I'm not complaining. But my era is just winning those damn Sandows was all it was about. I am so proud of those Sandow trophies. You know how hard I had to work for them, Dave.
Yeah, believe me. And you could have had a couple more, and if it wasn't for Ronnie, you'd have a lot more.
Yeah, I'm sure Victor thinks he could have had one too, you know?
Yeah. I wanted to ask you this final question, because I know you got your time is very valuable. Who do you think will be the next Jay Cutler? Not physique-wise, I'm talking businessman-wise. Who do you see of the upcoming guys that you can say, hey, you know what, this guy's going to be like me. He's gonna like, you know, after he's done competing, he's going to be a businessman. He's going to, you know, take over the industry by storm and have the same. I don't know if anyone will ever have the same drive that you do, but who will be the next big entrepreneur?
You know, entrepreneurs that utilize what their tools of, you know, I have respect for you more than you probably realize. You never even got a pro card, but you're able to take all these tools and drive it into, if you take a little bit of that work ethic and you put it towards passion, right? That's the main thing, is you have to sometimes have passion. A lot of us don't do things because we look at the monetary effect. We have to look at it because we truly love to do it. And I see a lot of guys doing it. I mean, I see, like you just mentioned, Chris Bumstead. I mean, he's aligned himself to be wildly successful, more than what he is now. And I mean, like I said, I think he may go down as, you know, the most successful bodybuilder, you know, besides Schwarzenegger. I mean, we look at Schwarzenegger to be pivoted to other things, but look at the tools that Arnold took and put in position to make himself basically a household name. And I think Chris is well on his way to doing that. As far as, you know, the lineup we see right now, I think Eric is starting to find that rhythm. I just don't know how long that reign's going to be. I mean, look at Ronnie Coleman. I think people discount how successful he is with business, and, you know, what he's taken social media over by storm. I mean, the ideal thing now is to have, you know, have the stage, have the social media, and obviously the fan base. And I think that a few guys actually control that. And I love that. I mean, that's what drives, I think, a lot of my people that follow me, and someone that I pay attention to. It all comes down to what they do off the stage alongside with the competition. And I know for myself, I would just be like, okay, the job is to get to the stage, get off the stage, and then I can get back to business. That was the most exciting point for me, is the challenge to work. I mean, we started this call offline, and you're like, man, I don't understand why you do what you do, or you're nonstop. But I have to be. I'm still digging in more things on my plate that you can ever imagine. And I'm just crazy, man. You know, Dave, like I never had kids, so I don't have that responsibility. And you always questioned, hey, you need a child, and I just tell Dave, I'm just too busy, I'm too busy.
Yeah. You legitimately love to work, and you know what? I'm the same way. I try to say I'm not, but I really am. You like to work even more than I do, but I don't feel like, if I'm not working, I feel like I don't even know what to do with myself. So, because you know what, you're not just a driven by money, you're a creative brain. So you have to constantly be creating something new, or you're bored with life. And I think that's you have identified that about yourself. And I appreciate the compliment you gave me, by the way. That was very nice of you. But we have that same mindset, like we have to creatively be doing something, or then we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing in this world. Does that make sense?
Yes. And you know what, Dave, you are the originator of the podcasts and the media channels. And now we're all doing that. I mean, you can sit back if you were arrogant or you wanted to be one of those people, you could be like, well, they're just following my lead because I did all this. And I still sometimes question, I feel like your channel is kind of the bodybuilding hub. I feel like you seem to gather the personalities. And that's why, like, listen, I done Ron Harris because I have a lot of respect for Ron because I've known him since I was a kid. He's from Boston. And I know he's trying to make an effort to build a channel now. But I always come to dedicate this, and I refuse a lot, Dave. I refuse a lot because I don't want to come here and make predictions, because I learned that predictions sometimes can turn to enemies very, very quickly. And I know for myself, I remember Dan Solomon was a media personality, and he was kind of like, hey, Phil, he's going to win. And I got so pissed off, and I was so disappointed because I'm like, I looked at the friendship and I'm like, how could he not support me? And now, of course, I look back and we kind of laugh about it a little bit. But when you're on a diet and you're low carbs or whatever, you're in full training, right? You have one vision, and that's 16 weeks out. Dude, you don't want to deal with any kind of negativity, and someone not supporting you sometimes can be a real kick in the teeth that had supported you, especially when you're sitting there going at it every day and like you already had the title. And, for me, I was probably the most counted out guy in 2009. So when you sit here and say, can so-and-so win? And listen, I moved up from 8th to 2nd. So when we talk about, do I think Labrada or a Martin or like all these guys, Raphael, I just said that, they probably can't be 1st or 2nd. I'd love for them to prove me wrong. I mean, that was probably the wrong statement, and that's no disrespect, guys. I don't want to make enemies that way, but hopefully this gives you a little more fire and a little insight, man, because it's anyone's game come the Olympia. I'm just hoping that when I'm there Saturday night and it's the 60th anniversary and I have Lee Haney to my side and I have Ronnie Coleman there and I have, Samir Bannout and guys that inspired me to be who I am today and on all levels. I'm just happy. I would love to, if I'm available, do this wrap up with you.
We'd love to get you there. Absolutely.
I disappear, because it's hard for me to get in and out of there. But
he runs as soon as it's over. Yeah, he runs.
You know how it is. But Chris Aceto and you have this Sunday night show, and I tune into every episode because I know I'm mentioned a lot in there, and the history of Chris and I, it's wild. I mean, Chris knows me better than anyone, and he'll tell you, he slept on my couch, and Chris can fall asleep anywhere, right? So he's just, on everyone's couches. He's at the end of the week, and we're going to get to spend a little time together, he and I, and kind of.
I heard you doing a podcast with him on Thursday, is it?
Yes, which it's besides Ronnie Coleman. Those are the top 2. That was my bucket list when I started a podcast during the pandemic. Right. I said, I got to get Chris on. And, Chris is like already got the stories lined up, Dave.
He's like, he asked me, he goes, Jay wants me on the pod. I say, go do it. What are you even thinking about? You're going to be there anyway.
I said, well, I can't tell Dave no if, he wants me for the prediction show, but I'll be here every year. I hope people enjoy the insight a little bit. I think I'm kind of on track with that. I'm not going to make a prediction who's going to be 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I am glad you didn't put me on that spot.
I knew you weren't into that. That's why.
I'm super excited to see Samson and Andrew. I think we all are, and how they're going to stand next to those top guys currently. And I would love to see Nick Walker smash through all of them and kind of cause a disruption there.
Yeah, well, we'll see. You got to fill out your RXMuscle predictions contest, because it's you could win, some. I know you like to win.
What is it? Top what?
It's top 15 of the men, and then it's a top 5 classic, and then every other, just who's going to win the other divisions. Just
okay.
Those are really tiebreakers.
So if I win, hold on, I get species supplements, okay? Which
Carlo Filippone is going to send you the chicken pound, 20 pounds of chicken. You're going to get $1,000, which you could take your girl out to a nice dinner in Vegas, and you get species supplements, which are the best in the business. So you can't go wrong with that.
All right. So listen, I got a whole warehouse full of supplements. I have Mega Fit meals stocked up in my freezer. And
I'll send you all fiber. You don't make fiber. I'll send you Fiberlize. I'll send everything in fiber.
$1,000 could probably go a long way with me now.
Yeah, it probably could. Jay, you never turned down any money. I know that, because that's why you got a lot of money. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Vegas. And
find me, Dave. Find me for my kind of last minute. I don't want to say prediction, but let's do the build up.
Yeah, maybe I'll just show up at your house and I'll stick a microphone in your face. Yeah.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jay Cutler, 4-time Mr. Olympia, 3-time Arnold Classic. He'll be at the Olympia Saturday night if you want to meet him. And it was great talking to you.